Rich man is not the man that has everything, it's the man that doesn't need anything. I mean, all they tell you is to consume, whether it's social media, food, spending your money, buying shit that you don't need. Everything is geared for us to just spend and consume more and more and more. And it's the opposite. The key is not to need more or want more, it's to need less. If you're not happy with what you have, money is only going to magnify your situation. It might make it a little bit more tolerable, but it's not going to make you happier if you're not happy otherwise.
What's the definition of a great employee? Someone who can reduce the stress of those around them. And it's the same thing. What's the definition of a great salesperson? Someone who can reduce the stress of their salespeople. And if in looking at your company and looking at your life and looking at your goals, if you're able to go out there and recognize that whether it works or doesn't work, you're putting yourself in a position where you're helping somebody, not convincing somebody, and you're reducing their stress, you're going to be okay. It's going to work out. And that's the confidence that I've built in myself that wasn't necessarily always there. But I learned that if I try to help, if I reduce people's stress, good things can happen.
Since you're so, I'm too good to do this, I'm cool, I know you fucking made it, you got the cool car. Well, your teams don't have cool cars yet. Your team don't have badass houses yet. Your team can't retire yet. You're not a fucking leader. You're a piece of shit.
See, I promise you, one of the reasons people who are richer than you is because they value time more than you do. It'll change your life. It'll change your life when you stop wasting time to save money. So what we got to do is we got to get to the place in our lives where instead of wasting time to save money, we invest our time to multiply money. But better than that, we use our money to get time back instead of using time to get money back. And if I had to trade all of my money to get more time, I would do it. If I had to trade all of my time to get more money, I wouldn't do that, ever. How many of y'all track?
If you're brand new to leadership, here's 2 questions that you ask every week to every direct report. Number 1, how are you doing? This is a personal question, not professional at all. When I'm asking the question, how are you doing? And I see them, they felt seen, they feel cared for, they begin to trust me. And that leads to the second question. And this question can only be answered once you establish the trust that the first question does for you. Second question is, how can I help you win?
Nobody cares how smart you are. Nobody cares how funny you are. Nobody cares how rich you are, how good looking you are. The only thing people care about, this is one of my all-time favorite quotes, is how do you make them feel when they're with you? We don't care about the rest of it. And that's the truth. There's so much power in that. There's so much power when you know, I'm going to go try this thing. And if it completely falls apart, it does not matter. My people got me. They know me. They will appreciate that I put my ass out there, even if I fell on it. And that's the kind of people you want to have in your corner.
It takes 3 things to create a breakthrough in anything, in your personal life, in your business, anywhere. You need a strategy, but that's not the first place you should look, and it's the first place all of us look. It's instinctive. We've been trained to think that way, but the problem is the how-to is usually not that complex. Most people have strategies available, or they could get them, or you could create them, but the problem is you got a story, and your story is why it isn't working. And the story is, I've tried what? Everything. There's always a story. And what I tell people is, if you can just divorce the story of your limitation and marry the truth of your unlimited capacity, then the whole game changes. But it's hard to do that because when you're in your story, you don't even realize it. So you need a third piece for a breakthrough, and that's really what my life's about, which is changing people's states. Because in a different state, we're different people. Can mean people be nice? Yes or no? Of course they are, when they're in a nice state. Can nice people be mean? Sure, they get a mean state. So really learning to train yourself to be in an ideal state where the best of you comes out for yourself, for your family, for your mission, for your world, for your coworkers. To me, that's one of the most important decisions in life to make.
Leadership only exists if people follow when they would have the freedom to not follow. Otherwise, it's just power. And power is not leadership.
I was so dumb. I thought if I hired people, that they would work. I thought if I hired people and gave them money, that they would actually care about the customer. I thought if I took care of people when they were having hard times, that the first time the competitor across the street offered a nickel more an hour, that they wouldn't jump ship. I thought if I just moved around enough, if I just created enough sheer friction in the marketplace, that eventually this thing would get turning and it would get easy. I just wasn't prepared. So I just had to keep learning and reading and learning and reading and growing. And finally I realized, oh, I'm the problem. When you realize what's holding your organization back is you, it's depressing. Until you have the next moment, which says, if I'm the problem, that also means I can be the solution.
All you need is one person in your life who says, you got this, I believe in you, and you will find courage and energy to do things that you would not have had before. But more importantly, that person needs to also say, and if everything goes wrong, I will be there for you, and I will be there with you, and I will be in the mud with you. And has the ability to say, something's wrong, I'm worried about you.
CEOs should be spending their time 16 months into the future, not into next week. If you're getting problems that are today problems, you need to push them down to the frontline people that actually have the most context to make the best decision. A lot of times what happens is individual contributors at the front line get promoted into a leadership role, but they show up like an individual contributor. Come show it to me, I'll work with you on it. That's not how you want to show up as a leader. A leader says, you do it, and if you need help, I'm here to support you. Steve Jobs said it best. He says, it's easy to hire somebody and tell them what to do. It's hard to hire somebody and have them tell you what to do. I want to hire people that are going to tell me what they're going to do. And 1-3-1 rule is just like one of the best methodologies for that. So it's one problem, 3 viable options, 1 recommendation. 90% of the time, my feedback is, sounds good, do that.
Leadership is a choice. It is not a rank. I know many people at the senior-most levels of organizations who are absolutely not leaders. They are authorities, and we do what they say because they have authority over us, but we would not follow them. And I know many people who are at the bottoms of organizations who have no authority, and they are absolutely leaders. And this is because they have chosen to look after the person to the left of them, and they have chosen to look after the person to the right of them. This is what a leader is.
You see 3 underperformers, and instead of doing the hard work of having a one-on-one with those 3 underperformers and giving them honest feedback, thanking them where we can, but giving them honest feedback and saying, we got to get this together, we get everybody together and we diatribe for 20 minutes, kind of in generalities. Every top performer on the team is feeling like, well, what the, you haven't paid attention to my work. And what you're doing is you're demoralizing the team because we're unwilling to zoom in one-on-one and have difficult conversations. So you need to be careful when it's a team setting on what we're doing, because demoralization happens there.
Sometimes when you think you're making the wrong decision, or you have to making the toughest decision because you're thinking about somebody else and the consequences, if you think the price of winning is too high, wait till you get the bill from regret. And that bill from regret is generational. And there's a lot of people listening to this that bill has been passed on from generation to generation, and you are holding that bill right now. And somebody in one of your generations has to pay that bill off in order for the generation to move on. And the only way that bill gets paid off is you got to be willing to make the hardest decisions.
Instead of saying to children, don't eat on the couch, we're supposed to say, eat at the table. Pilots know this. It is well known in the pilot community that when you tell a pilot, don't hit the obstacle, they'll hit the obstacle. Because what they're doing is focusing on the obstacle. It's the same thing for you. If you focus on the obstacles, all you will see is obstacles. It's your choice how you choose to perceive your own career. It's literally perspective.
Now, what would you expect a cement truck to look like? Pretty dirty, right? Thing's a mess. Not this cement truck. This thing was immaculate. In fact, I'm walking by and I see this guy, he's polishing up the chrome on the wheel, okay? I'm thinking, what the heck? So I keep walking, and then I can't take it anymore. I have to come back, and I go over to him and I said, hey, can I ask you a question? He goes, sure. And I said, are you the driver of this truck? And he goes, yeah, I am. I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm cleaning the truck. And then I said this, yes, but why? Now I expected him to say something like, dude, you have no idea how much trouble we'll get in if my supervisor comes by here and this truck is dirty. I mean, they just hound us, you know, or, hey man, I'm trying to earn out my bonus. If we don't keep the truck clean, we don't get the bonus. Instead, he looks at me with just this look on his face. He's like, well, you got to take pride in your work, right? And I thought, here's a company that has built such an owner mindset and a mentality that they're paying attention to the chrome on a cement truck. Do you think that impacts every area of that company's business? Absolutely.
Everyone believes in the American dream until it comes true. When I was sleeping on the gym floor, I was the underdog. You know, my clients were all like, oh, good for you. You know, you're going after your dream. They'd see my blanket and my pillow in the corner of the gym, and they knew I was sleeping there. And then within 9 months, I had hired people and I had a manager. And I remember I walked in the lobby and the same people were like, oh, boss man's here. Oh, you're not too good for us now, right? And I remember being so jarred by the experience. And I was like, you guys rooted for me. And now I did what you said you were rooting for me to do. And that was when I realized that people want you to do well, but not better than them.
I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. And nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology. Not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into 3 major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle 2 sections make up our limbic brains. And our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, you know, there's if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont Langley. And back in the early 20th century, the pursuit of powered manned flight was like the dot-com of the day. Everybody was trying it. And Samuel Pierpont Langley had what we assume to be the recipe for success. I mean, even now, you ask people, why did your product or why did your company fail? And people always give you the same permutation of the same three things. Undercapitalized, the wrong people, bad market conditions. It's always the same three things. So let's explore that. Samuel Pierpont Langley was given $50,000 by the War Department to figure out this flying machine. Money was no problem. He held a seat at Harvard and worked at the Smithsonian and was extremely well connected. He knew all the big minds of the day. He hired the best minds money could find, and the market conditions were fantastic. The New York Times followed him around everywhere, and everyone was rooting for Langley. And how come we've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? A few hundred miles away in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They had none of what we consider to be the recipe for success. They had no money. They paid for their dream with the proceeds from their bicycle shop. Not a single person on the Wright brothers' team had a college education, not even Orville or Wilbur. And the New York Times followed them around nowhere. The difference was Orville and Wilbur were driven by a cause, by a purpose, by a belief. They believed that if they could figure out this flying machine, it'll change the course of the world. Samuel Pierpont Langley was different. He wanted to be rich and he wanted to be famous. He was in pursuit of the result. He was in pursuit of the riches. And lo and behold, look what happened. The people who believed in the Wright brothers' dream worked with them with blood and sweat and tears. The others just worked for the paycheck. And they tell stories of how every time the Wright brothers went out, they would have to take 5 sets of parts because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for supper. And eventually, on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers took flight. And no one was there to even experience it. We found out about it a few days later. And further proof that Langley was motivated by the wrong thing, the day the Wright brothers took flight, he quit. He could have said, that's an amazing discovery, guys. Now we'll improve upon your technology. But he didn't. He wasn't first. He didn't get rich. He didn't get famous. So he quit. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe what you believe.
There are 3 great questions to intentionally disrupt any kind of conversation. One is, what would you suggest? Somebody starts complaining, and you just say, well, what would you suggest? If you keep asking that, they're going to move to coming up with some solutions. The second is, what would it take for you to agree? What would it take for you to agree? You can just raise your hand and say, well, listen, there's a lot of conversation, but how do we get agreement around here? And if you ask that enough times, it'll redirect everybody's focus to finding a solution. The third great question is to say, can you live with it? I don't know about you, But I've wasted stupid time on this planet having dumb arguments where if I had just asked myself, could I live with it? I could live with it. And so often we just need to raise that in a meeting where somebody's just all hung up on something small, and you just have to say, can you live with it? Incidentally, if they say they can't, you go back to question 1. What would you suggest? I've never, ever seen a time when you say, what would you suggest? What would it take for you to agree? Or could you live with it? When you go through that cycle that you can't get a breakthrough. Every single time I've ever done this, and every single time I've ever coached somebody to do it, they've always had a breakthrough and found a solution.
So in this study, which included over 100 children, they either got the intelligence type feedback or the effort type feedback. First of all, the kids that got the intelligence-based feedback, when they were then later offered problem sets that were either challenging or were of the sort that they knew they could perform well on, they tended to select problems that they knew they could perform well on. These were what were referred to as performance goals. In other words, they picked problems that allowed them to continue to get the praise that they had received previously about being smart or talented. Whereas the kids that got feedback about their strong effort, when later presented with problems that were either easy or hard, more often than not, they picked the harder problems that stood to teach them more. So that's striking. It says that if you tell a kid that they're smart or talented, and that's the reason why they perform well, when they encounter challenges, they are likely to go with the least amount of challenge so that they can continue to receive that praise or feedback. Whereas if you receive praise and feedback for your strong effort, then later you tend to pick environments, problem sets, etc., that allow you to exert the very effort that got you the praise in the first place.
What most people want, really want, all the people I work with, maybe the people you work with, what they really want, they'll never say it, and they'll almost of them never know it. What almost every human being wants is they want to feel the day more. They got all these activities, they're blazing through. Get the kids to school, get this off to there, get that done, answer that email, get this project done. And even if they're moving towards things they find meaningful and they're awesome, but if they don't feel it, if they're literally not present, they're not mindful enough to sense it, to appreciate, to feel grateful, to feel the joy, to feel the ups, to feel the downs, to feel the miseries, to feel the wins. If you aren't feeling the day, you're just blazing through as an automaton. You're just blazing through the days, on autopilot. You're just overwhelmed, stressed, going through it, but you don't feel the day. I can't get you to be happy. So the gateway to all of happiness is always presence. Learn to be more present.
There's a process which has made more people rich than any other single process of goal achieving. And it's to take your major goal and structure it as a question. If your goal is to earn $100,000 a year, then you write, how can I earn $100,000 in the next 12 months? That's an open-ended question, not how can I earn it at my job or doing a specific thing, just an open-ended question, how can I earn the amount of money? And then you discipline yourself to write 20 answers to the question. And the 20 answers are all the different things that you could think of to earn $100,000. Work longer, work harder, upgrade my skills, get a new job, take a part-time opportunity. Whatever it happens to be, write down everything you could think of, but force yourself to write at least 20 answers to the question. The 20 question method, called mindstorming, forces you to dig deep, deep into your mind where you will find all your answers.
The number one, absolutely most important rule I can share with you when things get crazy is stay calm. Think. Just like when you're in a fight, it's the calmest fighter that usually wins. Whenever it gets crazy and chaotic in your life, my number one rule is to stay calm. You're welcome.
Study that was done recently, 98% of senior executives said they would not promote a messy person. They would not give a messy person greater responsibilities. That if you are messy, no matter how much you kid yourself, everybody around you concludes that you are inefficient, undependable, unreliable, and incompetent. And even if you do the job well, they think it's just an accident. So be neat. Stand back from your desk. and look at it and say, what kind of a person would work at a desk like this? Stand back and look at your car. Say, what kind of a person drives a car like this? Look at your workplace, your briefcase. Look at your home and say, what kind of a person lives here or works here? And you'll find that what will come to you is messy, inefficient, incompetent, disorganized, and so on. Neatness is critical to time management.
Most common thing that people do wrong in estimating, and that is underestimating how long it's going to take you to do it, not the production hours. They don't usually get the production hours wrong. It's the non-productive hours that they get wrong. So a lot of us will factor a job based on what I call 100% effectiveness. There's a piggyback on this, and that is we bid the job how we would do it, not so much how our team is capable of doing it. And I don't care how good your team is, no one's going to work as hard as you because they don't own the business, and you just need to accept that as reality. Nobody's going to work or care as much as you do because they don't own the business. There may be an exception out there, but it's very far and few in between.
The chokehold on the growth of your business is always you. It's always your psychology and your skills. And I found it's 80% psychology and 20% skills. I'm a strategist. I know the right strategy can save you a decade of time. So I'm totally into that. But I also know I can teach you all the best strategies. But if you've got limiting beliefs, if you're overwhelmed, if you're stressed out, if you're saying, I don't know what to do, you're not gonna execute it. Anyone can become a pilot and fly a plane when the weather's good. But you have to have a special certification called IFR to read when there's bad weather or fog. You can't see anything, so you got to be able to read those gauges. Most entrepreneurs don't know how to read their gauges. They know how to do it well when the sun's out, which is why in 10 years, 96% of them are gone, 4% make it. And make it doesn't mean that they make any money, it just means they're still standing. So learning how to manage the financial intelligence of your business, learning marketing, learning how to recruit, learning how to train is a skill side, but you need the psychology and the skills together to execute.
One of the marks of superior entrepreneurs is that they're intensely solution-oriented. Is whenever something goes wrong, they immediately go calm and they say, all right, what's the solution? What's our next action? What mediocre people do is they say, who did it and who's to blame? How did this happen? They go on a witch hunt. And of course, that makes them become angry and frustrated. But superior executives, when something goes wrong, problem with a customer, problem with money, problem with bills, problem with product delivery or defects, they say, okay, all right, how do we solve this? What's the solution? Now, here's a wonderful thing, is your success in life will be determined by your ability to solve problems.
Rule number one is never charge for your time. You don't charge for your time, you charge for an outcome. Oftentimes when we hire professionals, the plumber, I don't know if you've heard this analogy, but the plumber comes over and you have an issue and nobody else could figure it out, and the 2 or 3 other plumbers came first, and finally the 4th plumber comes in your house. He kind of goes around within 3 minutes, he taps here, he clicks this, he does this, and all of a sudden he tightens a bolt and all of a sudden the plumbing's fixed. And he gives you an invoice for $5,000, but he was only there for 6 minutes. Well, you didn't pay him for the 6 minutes. You paid him for the 25 years experience for him to understand exactly how to troubleshoot, diagnose, and prescribe and fix the problem.
Only have 3 resources that matter. There's time, energy, and money. That's it. Every other resource boils down to one of those 3 resources: time, energy, and money. For you to accomplish anything, it takes a certain balance of time, energy, and money. So when it comes time for you or I to live our public life, we go to a restaurant, we go to I was just at MegaCon, a big comic book conference, right? I was there with my kids and my wife. It takes a certain amount of money to buy the ticket, money to invest in the hotel room and everything else. It takes a certain amount of energy to put up with all those people and the lines and your kids going crazy for MegaCon. So there's a certain amount of energy that goes into it. And then of course there's a time element. When you meet with somebody, you have to understand how those 3 resources are being used at any given time. So if you meet somebody at the beginning of the day, they're most likely fully resourced. You meet somebody at the end of the day, the gas tanks are at different levels. Energy might be lower, time is probably running on empty. So you have to understand how people's resources are different. The more a person's resources are depleted, the closer they get to their true Myers-Briggs personality. When they're fully resourced, they can fake it. They can act extroverted. They can take extra time to think something through. They can be non-judgmental. But when they're tapped, when the end of the day comes and they're fried, that's when you see who they really are.
So what I've done is I've picked out my absolute favorites, and I'd like to show you a demonstration of what it can look like. Imagine that this chair is something that you want somebody else to believe in. You want somebody else to buy into this. This is your idea. This is you wanting to make your voice heard. This gives you two options. Either you're on this side of the chair and you're a fairly mediocre communicator, you shoot from the hip, you hope for the best, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Option number two is that you're on this side of the chair and you know exactly what you're doing in every instance of time. You know that by taking a step forward, you increase focus. You know that by tilting your head slightly to the side, you increase empathy. You know that by changing the pace of what you are saying, you increase focus. And you know that by shifting yourself lower, you increase trust. And you know that by lowering your voice, you get anticipation. And you know for absolute certain.
Here comes some psychological skills nobody taught you. To avoid workplace drama and be more liked, compliment people behind their back. Thank somebody for a trait you want them to have more of. Physical contact makes people more likely to say yes. If you think someone is watching you, fake a yawn, then just watch. If someone's trying to make you decide something in a hurry, they could be giving you a bad deal. If you whisper to someone, they're likely to whisper back, even if there's no reason to be quiet. If someone shy is speaking to you, if you look at them and nod, they're more likely to feel comfortable to continue talking. If you can't decide something, flip a coin, then see how the result makes you feel. Just see if you're happy or disappointed with the result. Choose the happy one. If you like hearing these, just go to your favorite podcast platform and look up Joe Drummer Boy.
The expensive thing that all of us are paying for is the information that we don't know. I heard this close years ago, and this guy got on stage and he was like, "Hey, ma'am." She was like, "How much do you make?" She was like, $50,000. So he wrote $50,000 on the whiteboard, and then he wrote $1 million on top of the $50,000, and he subtracted it and said $950,000. He said, "You pay life $950,000 every single year for not knowing how to make $1 million a year." The biggest debt all of us pay is
one of the most mind-blowing concepts I've ever discovered. The primary difference between people who succeeded at a very high level, people who live mediocre lives, people who succeed focus on intention and ignore distraction. People who fail and struggle and live mediocrely, those people, they focus on distraction and ignore intention. Winners quit being distracted. What is distracted? Anything that you give attention and intention to that does not move the needle in your favor. Kobe Bryant became Kobe Bryant because he focused on intention and ignored distraction. Michael Jordan, same thing. Tiger Woods, same thing. Doesn't matter. People who elevate to that level. Elon Musk focuses on intention and ignores distraction. You can literally set yourself apart from the majority of human beings alive on the earth if you will just focus on intention and ignore distraction.
The man who loves walking will walk further than the man who loves the destination. And when you love the journey, the goals just happen. You hit milestones as a side effect. Because it doesn't matter. At that point, I don't care if I can lift this much weight or run this fast. I mean, that's cool, but I don't love it as much as I love the journey. I love the journey. What does the journey consist of? Sucking at something, failing, getting better, learning, start it over, do it again. When you fall in love with the journey, everything else takes care of itself.
Camaraderie with the men and knowing that you need to take them for a beer. It's the showing up on a job site and start saying, "Hey, bro, y'all are killing this, and I appreciate it because it's hot right now." Start putting $100 bills in their tool belts. That's the kind of shit we keep up with our main guys' wives' birthdays. We send them to get their nails done. If you're not cool with that woman and you want her husband to go on the road for 3 months, you better.
You meet a family that is wealthy. Somewhere back in their lineage, generationally, they weren't. And then something happens. The one shows up. In every family, there's the one. And that one changes that family forever. In my family, I'm the one. We don't think like we used to think. My nieces and nephews are positive, forward-thinking, caring, good people with dreams. I wasn't raised like that. I'm the one. I'm the one who made the calls late at night. I'm the one who drove hours and hours for people to say no. I'm the one who dealt with the heat. I'm the one who typed all the emails. I'm the one who returned all the messages. I'm the one that dealt with all the stress and the strife and the cancellations and the back talking and the people who didn't keep their word to me and the difficult times. I'm the one who lost sleep at night. I'm the one who got up early. I'm the one who carried the emotional burden of winning, just like you are. You're the one.
People think they have to know how. I call it the tyranny of how. Like, you get all excited, I'm gonna do this, and then your brain goes, I've never done it before, oh my God, what did I say? I don't know how to do this. And they tend to focus on how to do it. And when you start with how, you're screwed. But if you know what you want and you get a big enough why, now you'll figure out how to do it. But if you start with how, you know, the small brain, the fear brain, goes, oh shit, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do 90% of the time either. I know what and why, and then I try something, doesn't work, I try something else, and I do something else. Now I speed it up by learning from the best.
And what happens is that people apply finite rules to infinite games, and then they wonder why it's not working.
What's an example?
The Vietnam War isn't a simple example, which is basically the U.S. lost the Vietnam War because they were applying a finite structure, which is we're going to win this war, and the Vietnamese people were playing an infinite game structure, which is we're going to stay alive and keep fighting. And as long as someone is staying alive and keeping fighting, they will beat the person who's trying to end something. And so the infinite frame always conquers the finite. And the thing is that most of the games worth playing are infinite. If you were trying to get in shape, you don't win getting in shape. The point is to stay in shape for the rest of your life. You don't win at marriage. The point is to stay married. You don't win at business. The point is to stay in business and keep doing business. So the point of the game is to keep playing. And I would imagine success, if you put all of those things together, it's an infinite game. And so the point of success is to do the things that make you successful. And so if you're doing the things that are making you successful, then you are by definition winning.
My favorite quote in life is, you can tell the size of a man by the size of his problems.
Yes.
And I think that creates the most healthy relationship you could ever have with problems. So I'll backtrack into my business. Early on, I would have $2,500 payrolls. And at the time, it was a huge fucking deal to me. Yeah, it really was. For sure. So much so that it kind of made me nervous because I knew I had to pay for equipment. And then in construction, you know, you might be net 45, net 60 easy. And I went and I asked for a little line of credit and they wanted to give me $7,000. I ended up getting like 15. And as I got bigger and bigger and bigger, and the problems got bigger and bigger and bigger, and today, like $100,000 a week in payroll at my company, I have to tell you, I'm super proud of that fucking problem. And so you can look at a guy who can't pay his light bill. That's kind of a lame ass problem. $100,000 a week payroll, that's a hero type problem. And every man that watches this show or watches anything knows or should know that he's playing the star character in his own show. And without big problems, the movie's gonna suck. So for that reason, I like to remember that you can tell the size of a man by the size of the problems. And when big problems come to me, I say, that's my kind of fucking problem. I get excited about it because that's the next level up. It's a next level up because all you're doing in life is solving a bunch of damn problems. So as a man, you need to go find problems and make sure they're fucking big. Something that you can remember. Something that when you're sitting in that rocking chair at 90 years old, you can be like, bro, I was a fucking G. I was getting after it. I had big problems. I had real shit going on. Not this bullshit I couldn't get one date or pay one light bill or pick up a tab. So get big fucking problems. That makes it more fun. It makes it exciting. It makes you feel alive. There's nothing better than having big problems. And it changes your relationship with stress because you're going into that next phase where you have to stretch, and that's normally where the pain is, right? But if you can have that relationship with problems being bigger, you can kind of smile at
Pressure is a privilege. You know what pressure means? That means somebody believes in you. Do you believe in yourself? They can't believe more in you than you believe in yourself. They can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself. Their obligation can't be greater than your obligation to yourself. Pressure defines who you are and who you're not. But you know what pressure does? It defines who you can become.